Hello, I'm Adrian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use these lovely double stop sixth shapes. It's a really sweet melodic sound. I use this kind of thing all the time, and it works in a whole range of different styles and contexts. I think the piece that I just played is a blues with kind of a soul feel, but works equally well in a country context or in more of a classic rock context. So I'm going to take you through exactly what I just played. Also going to talk a little bit about the theory behind this idea. Then I hope by the end of this video you'll understand what's going on and you'll be able to use similar ideas in rhythm guitar parts and solos of your own. So let's get to it. Right, let's start with a bit of painful music theory. Painless music theory is what I meant to say. Some painless music theory. And we're in the key of G for this, and it's a 12-bar blues in the key of G. 3 chords. We've got 1, 4, 5 chords in G. So G7, C7 and D7. Now my approach today is to be using double stops taken from the Mixolydian mode of each of those chords. Now if Mixolydian mode is just a load of ancient Greek to you, then let me explain. It's nothing to be scared of. It's just a scale which perfectly fits a dominant 7th chord sound, and the simplest way to think of the Mixolydian mode is it's just a major scale with a flattened 7th. So if you think G major scale, but you flatten the 7th note, in this case we're making an F sharp and F, then we have that kind of sound, which is the G Mixolydian mode. Now what I'm doing is I'm playing double stops, and these notes are all taken from that scale, but they're 6 letters apart in the musical alphabet. So for instance, I'm often starting off with this shape here. We've got a B and we've got a G. B, C, D, E, F, G, 6 notes apart. That's what a 6th is. Now the way I like to think of it is this: if you play a Mixolydian scale or mode along the length of the high E string, we're then going to harmonise it with notes on the G string which are also taken from the G Mixolydian mode, but they're going to be a 6th apart. So let's just see how that works. If we start with this G note here, the 3rd fret on the top string, and I'm going to play the G Mixolydian mode. The notes are simple. It's just G, A, B, C, D, E, F and G. It just so happens that there are no sharps or flats in the G Mixolydian scale, so that keeps things nice and simple. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to play some notes along the length of the G string. They're also going to be notes from the G Mixolydian mode, but I'm actually going to start here from a B and going to go up the G Mixolydian mode from there. So we've got B, C, D, E, F, G, A and B. Put those 2 strings together and we have this. There we have that lovely sweet melodic 6th sound. And you can see how this falls on the guitar. We're actually using 2 different shapes here, and you need to do that to make sure that all of the notes conform to the G Mixolydian mode. So we've got this shape here, and this is technically a minor 6th. So we've got the B note here, the 4th fret on the G string, and then the 3rd fret on the top string. That's a minor 6th. And then the next shape, we've got a C and an A note. This is the 5th fret on the G, 5th fret on the high E, and this is a major 6th. And you can see when we play this little scale of 6ths, you're switching between those 2 different shapes, and there's actually a pattern to it which is quite easy to remember. We've got minor, major, major, then we've got minor, major, major, and then a minor to finish off, and you get back to the minor 6th that you started from. So first thing to do, I think, would be to learn this little scale of 6ths up and down the neck, starting from the G. And you can play this, I like to play this with hybrid picking, so I'm picking the note on the G string and then the note on the high E I'm plucking with the middle finger of my picking hand. You could play this all with the pick, but then you've got the issue of having to mute the B string, so you're just going to have to lean into the B string a little bit to keep that muted if you just want to play this pick style. So that's the basic idea, and really what I'm doing in the piece of music that you heard me play earlier is expanding that idea, playing it in some different places on the neck, playing it over some different chords as well. So next thing you might like to try is playing that same little scale of 6, but starting here. So we can actually use exactly the same shapes, but on the B and the D strings. So if we start here, we've got our G note at the 8th fret on the B, and we're harmonizing that with this B note at the 9th fret on the D, and it's exactly the same thing. And you can also, of course, go down from that starting point, descending the Mixolydian scale until you run out of room. So that's another way of playing the harmonized G Mixolydian scale. When the chord changes, if we're playing over a C7 chord, then we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be thinking C Mixolydian mode. So you need to find your C starting point. So I know I've got a C note here at the 8th fret on the top string. Play my little scale up there. I could also do that here. Starting on the B and the D strings down in the first position. When the chord changes to a D7, then going to need to start here on a D note. So we've got a D note at the 3rd fret on the B string. Or I could do the same thing on the high E and G strings starting here in the 10th position. And just run out of room to play the whole scale there. One further thing that I like to do is to associate these 6th ideas with a familiar chord shape, and that kind of gives me a reference point or a jumping off point for getting into some of these sounds. So for instance, I might think of this G7 bar chord down at the 3rd fret, and you can see that hiding within the top part of that chord I've got my little 6th shape. So wherever I've got this chord, I know that I can just go straight into those 6ths from that chord's starting point. And similarly, I can associate the 6ths on the B and the D strings with this chord shape. So I'm playing this, again it's a G7, but it's in the C form up at the 8th fret, and hiding within that chord I've got this B and G note here, and that's my starting point for those 6ths. So I've got the chord and those 6th shape, and it works exactly the same with the other chords in the blues. So for C, I've got that, or I've got this, and then for D, or this. So I find that super helpful to think about chord shapes as a starting point for getting into these 6th ideas. Let's take a look at the piece itself then, and it's been designed to show you a few ways that you can use these 6ths in a musical context. And it's a semi-improvised piece. I probably wouldn't play exactly the same thing twice, and it's actually up to you whether you want to learn what I'm doing here note for note, or whether you just want to skim through it and understand the basic ideas and then make them your own. So let's kick off with the first phrase. Remember, this is a blues in G, and we're starting off playing over the one chord, which is a G7, and the phrase I'm playing is this. So we're starting off coming right out of this G7 shape that I mentioned earlier. So I'm playing a B note at the 9th fret on the D string, and a G note, which is the 8th fret on the B string. That's our first 6th shape. I'm sliding into that, and then I'm sliding down, just moving that same shape 2 frets lower, and then I'm switching to the major 6th at the 5th fret, and then down to the 3rd fret. And you've got choices here how you articulate these 6ths. I'm mixing this up a little bit during the course of this piece. Sometimes I'm playing the notes one after the other, and sometimes I'm playing both notes simultaneously. You can feel free to mix that up. Also, the 6 work really well when you're sliding between the shapes, so very often got that kind of sliding movement happening. So that's our first phrase. The second phrase is very similar. So it starts off in the same way, descends, and then here I'm starting off with this fifth fret major 6th shape, and I'm going from the 5th fret to the 4th fret to the 3rd fret. So the 5th fret and the 3rd fret shapes are in the G Mixolydian scale. The 4th fret shape isn't. This is just a passing kind of chromatic chord shape. So very common to do that, where you've got pairs of 6 that are 2 frets apart and it's the same shape. You can just connect them together with a chromatic passing shape in the middle. So that's our second phrase. Then the harmony is changing to the 4 chord to a C7, and once again I'm thinking straight out of the chord shape, and it's the same chord shape that I was thinking out of on the G, but this time we're down at the 1st fret, and the phrase I'm playing is this. So we've got our minor 6th shape here. It's an E and a C. Then I'm switching to the major 6th at the 3rd fret. Again, I've got this chromatic thing happening. So 3rd fret, 4th, 5th. And I'm just catching an extra note. The 3rd fret on the high E strings is an extra G. And it's actually just doubling the G I'm already playing here an octave higher. So, and I'm descending the same way, and then just going between those 2 initial shapes. Then we're heading back to the 1 chord. I've just got a little minor pentatonic connecting phrase there, hitting the root, and then I'm back up here. And this is more or less the same as the first phrase. We're heading to the 5 chord then. This is a D7, and again straight out of the chord shape. So starting here, we've got F sharp and D. Up the scale with that little chromatic passing shape. And then I'm continuing higher. And just going back and forth, sliding back and forth between the 12th and 10th frets at the end. And then we're resolving back to the 1 chord. Now I'm coming back to the 3rd fret here, B and G, and then I think I'm just playing a minor pentatonic blues phrase just to turn everything around. So you can really play any minor pentatonic phrase you like. Then I'm finishing off with the 5 chord, so once again I'm playing the F sharp and the D6 straight out of the chord shape. That's our first 12 bar chorus. Let me just give you a slow playthrough of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. On into the second chorus then, and things are getting a little bit busier rhythmically, and I'm also climbing a bit higher up the neck. I'm kicking off with this phrase. So starting off up here with this B note at the 16th fret on the G string, and this G at the 15th fret on the high E string, and then I'm just descending the G Mixolydian scale. using those slides between the shapes. And this is almost identical to the very first lick of the piece, except I'm playing it an octave higher, but it's almost the same as this. Just playing it up here. Then I'm continuing down, but I'm switching now to the B and the D strings. So I'm now going. So starting off here. So still G Mixolydian mode. I'm just continuing on down the scale. So I've got an E here and a C on the D and B strings. Sliding down to the 12th fret, 10th fret, and then chromatically back up to the 12th. Then I'm sliding into the C7 chord, straight out of the chord shape once again. I've got E, E and C, and then I'm ascending the C Mixolydian mode from here, and then I'm switching onto the top set of strings. So again, you can articulate those notes how you want to. You can play them at the same time or one after the other. So I'm probably doing a bit of both of those things there. Back to the G7 chord, the 1 chord. Just got a 10th fret and then 7th fret major 6th shape. Again, thinking out of chord shapes here. Then I'm just playing a little G minor pentatonic lick just to break up these relentless sixths a little bit, and the lick I'm playing I think goes like this: 1, 2. So I'm playing this double stop. This is 11 on the B, 10 on the high E. I'm thinking G minor pentatonic in the 10th position. Got that double stop. Coming down the scale. Sliding down to the 8th fret on the D. And then resolving it to this 6th shape once again. So the B and the G that we opened the piece with. Then final 4 bars of the piece, we're going to the 5 chord, and I'm playing this. So notes are coming a bit faster here. This is a very country style lick, I think, so it's the same kind of note choice I was using before, but rhythmically this suggests more of a country kind of idea. So here I'm thinking out of this D7 shape, coming down the D Mixolydian scale. Picking up the scale on the next string set, so I'm now moved over onto the B and the G strings. So I'm here at the 9th and 8th frets, and I'm coming down to the 7th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and then finally just resolving back to that G7 sound there. So that's the second chorus. Let me just give you a slow run through of that. 2, 3, 4. Well, that's about all we have time for this week, Groovers. As usual, the music tab backing track is going to be up on my Patreon page, so you can check that out if you're interested. If you're already one of my patrons, then thanks very much. It's really only through your help that I'm able to keep on doing this week after week, week after week, making it sound like it's a real chore to do these videos, but it's fun. It's fun most of the time. But thanks to everyone for watching. I shall see you next week. Bye bye.